mynews.studio.
Smoke rises from the last North Sea oil rig. World leaders are setting a course for a fossil-free future. Does this new roadmap finally mark the end of oil, gas, and coal?
As of today, 2025-1201, the central story from COP30 in Belém, Brazil is this. A coalition of countries is moving beyond climate talk and into action. For the first time, there's an independent, actionable plan to phase out oil, gas, and coal. The UK's decision to end new North Sea drilling licenses. How significant is that for other major economies?
It really is a break from what we've seen before. The UK, with its long North Sea oil history, saying no more exploration, that's a clear signal. This isn't just about making statements, it's an actual pivot. And the UK isn't alone. Colombia, the Netherlands, Australia, and 22 more countries are backing this roadmap, ending years of back and forth.
But how is this supposed to work in practice? What's actually different about this plan compared to, say, the Paris Agreement?
The structure is different this time. Colombia is set to host the first international conference for the phase-out of fossil fuels in April 2026. Unlike Paris, which focused on country pledges and voluntary reporting, this plan builds a binding, global process to actually manage fossil fuel supply. Everyone's included: governments, workers, academics, and industry.
So it's not just about reducing demand or setting targets on paper. There's also the Fossil Fuel Treaty Initiative. How does that differ from what we've seen before?
That treaty is meant to fill a big gap. Paris let countries set their own targets. Now, this initiative is asking for real commitments and hard timelines. The focus is on supply, how much oil, coal, and gas gets produced in the first place. The idea is a global wind-down with actual accountability.
That's a pretty major shift. But are countries just signing on, or is there real investment and infrastructure change already happening?
There's tangible movement. 23 countries have pledged to quadruple sustainable fuel use by 2035. Utilities are putting in $150 billion a year to update grids and storage, aiming to triple renewables by 2030 compared to now.
And what about the countries that worry about the economic impact, especially in the global south?
That's where the Journey Fund plays a role. It links phase-out commitments to direct investment. Take Colombia's pilot. Solar projects in the Amazon are supplying energy to 50,000 people and cutting 38,000 tons of CO2 each year. It's about expanding energy access and addressing climate at the same time.
All of this sounds promising, but we've seen negotiations stall before. What changed at COP30?
The process stalled after COP28. Back then, countries agreed in principle to transition away from fossil fuels, but COP29 didn't lead to anything concrete. At COP30, divisions were obvious, but a transparency crisis made the opposition seem smaller, which actually strengthened the coalition. There was less resistance than expected.
How did the COP30 presidency handle those divisions?
Lula, as COP30 president, stepped outside the usual UN process and launched 2 independent roadmaps. These were led by science and included everyone, not just the negotiators. The plans will come back to future COPs, but they aren't held up by the need for complete consensus.
But resistance is still there. Major producers like Nigeria and India have concerns. How's the coalition handling pushback from countries that rely on fossil fuels?
The roadmap puts justice and differentiation at its core. Producers get a seat at the table. The Belém Action Mechanism, for example, is about knowledge sharing. Countries and industries talk about what works and what doesn't. There's a real emphasis on worker retraining and economic diversification. These aren't afterthoughts.
That makes sense. You can't just pull the plug on fossil fuels and leave workers and economies behind.
Right, and that's why the Just Transition programs are built in. The goal is to move workers into new sectors, use climate finance to support post-fossil economies, and stay flexible as conditions change.
Looking forward, what will show whether this coalition model really works?
April 2026 will be crucial. Will more countries join, and will the roadmap turn into concrete sector targets, funding, and transition programs? The fossil fuel industry's reaction matters too, whether they adapt or try to hold back progress.
So, is this the end of climate negotiations as we've come to know them?
Not the end, more a transformation. The focus is shifting from what should happen to how it will happen. This roadmap is about putting implementation front and center.
The last North Sea rig may be coming down, but the big question is whether this coalition can turn commitments into action. Thanks for joining us and thinking it through.
We covered the shift from talk to action at COP30, binding commitments, major investments, and why just transition matters for economies and workers alike.
Thanks for listening. This episode was brought to you by mynews.studio. Try it now for free.